Hey, welcome back to No Hype Beer Review. Very excited for today's beer as I usually am. A beer I really wanted to try, didn't think I'd get a chance to. And I think they had only 400 bottles that were released at the brewery, right at Dogfish Head. And then they did have drafts. Obviously, that's how I got this. Again, I mentioned this in the Mexican Cake review. I got this at Albany Ale and Oyster in Albany, New York. And really lucked out getting some stuff I didn't think I'd get a chance to review, let alone try going there. So this is a bourbon barrel aged Palo Santo, again from Dogfish Head, and I like the regular one. It was like one of the earliest reviews I ever did. I did a regular Palo Santo, maybe with some age on it, and again, I really like that beer. I think it's an underrated barrel aged beer. It's a brown ale, and it'd be why it's easy to get. It's probably why because people love the hype, right? Insert no hype comment. Um, so anyway, the bourbon barrel aged version, and I did have a flight today, and this was one of the beers on the flight. So I have had it in tasting form and loved it. Was so excited to grab this 6 ounce crowler of it and do a proper review. Speaking of proper, the proper glassware. This is Dogfish Head's wood aged glass. They don't do a lot of barrel aged beers. Hopefully they'll go forward and do more. Palo Santo, this one obviously they did the wide release of the worldwide stout with vanilla that was aged in oak barrels. I think it's the only time I've used this glass besides this. All right, so website said somewhere between 12 and 14% ABV. They're saying 13% ABV. So I don't know if they just split the difference or if Dogfish had told them, or the rep or whoever, that it was 13%. Doing a horrible job pouring this. I love this glass, but it does make it a little harder to kind of tell about the color. But again, they're not lying to you. Bourbon barrel aged Palo Santo from Albany. Give them some free publicity, clean up my mess a little bit. All right, so just under 2 fingers ahead, you do get a nice, really, 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 really. My dog heard my wife come home. Dark brown color. The head is relatively big. It's you have the small bubbles, but you have these medium ones popping, making big craters. So definitely looks kind of soapy, except it's the wrong color. It's that khaki-ish color, but it definitely looks like Palo Santo, like the regular one. Um, I should mention this. It was aged. It's actually double barrel aged for a month, about a month in Palo Santo barrels. These giant, awesome tanks that this company, I believe it's Buffalo, New York. People who make those like skyscraper or like those tall buildings, those big water tanks. They had them come in and make those out of Palo Santo they got from South America or Central America, and then I think it's 4 months in the bourbon barrels. Anyway, let's get into the aroma. You get that wood immediately. You get some nice vanilla notes, some caramel. There's a roast quality, and it's almost like my mind's playing tricks on me because it's like, oh, it smells like a stout. It's like, no, it's a brown ale. Some caramel, some. You do get some kind of like berry note. Tell you what, though, you get a lot of wood. And it's interesting because unless you're drinking their Palo Santo, like, how do you know what that wood smells like, right? So you get that vanilla oak kind of a smell, and then you do get some of that bourbon as well. It's a very nice aroma. That Palo Santo wood, I forget if I mentioned in that review again. This was like one of the first reviews I ever did. It's so dense. They had a chunk of it when I was at the brewery, and like they handed it to people, and like every single person when they like grabbed it, like their arm went down because like it's way heavier than it looks. It's so dense. And then they had it at the bar. I think a piece that had a little indent. It was shot with a gun. And it was just like crazy how dense this wood is. I could keep talking about it because it's kind of a neat thing, but that has nothing to do with the beer review. Get to taste. Cheers. So good. You do get a lot of warmth from that ABV, but it doesn't come across as alcoholic. Like you don't. I wouldn't say you taste the alcohol necessarily, but you get that nice warmth. The finish in your chest is slightly like you took a shot of something, and it's not burn, it's warm. So again, it's not liquor, but you do get some of that. This is relatively cold. When I had it today at the Albany Ale and Oyster, um, it was pretty warm, and I got a little bit more of the chocolate kind of taste in there, which was interesting. So you get the bourbon, you get the wood, so it is like the aroma there. You get a little bit of roast, but because it's not like a full roasty beer, that brown ale, you get more of the caramel coming through. Maybe even like a little bit of butterscotch, but because that alcohol warmth is there, it doesn't come across as like a super sweet beer because that alcohol is kind of drying it out, especially in the finish. So although it has these notes of like caramel and butterscotch, it's not like a pastry stout kind of a taste at all. And I got to keep saying it's a brown ale, it's a brown ale. Kind of like the Bravo from Firestone Walker. It's like, all right, you took a brown ale and put it into bourbon barrels. Waste of a bourbon barrel to me, right? Then I drink it, I'm like, this beer's really good. This beer's really good. A little bit of tannins in there, which works very well in this beer. When you take that first sip, it's interesting. It's like, not the first sip, we take a sip, your first initial thought is this is like a thin brown ale, or I shouldn't even say thin, this is just a brown ale. Then all of a sudden, all of those other flavors start cascading over your tongue. It's a lot of stuff happening. It's super pleasant. It works. It does kind of work in a balance, but it's not, I wouldn't say this is a balanced beer, but like it is off-centered, right? That's like their whole thing. And the flavors complement each other so much. I mean, and it does. It's so interesting because if you watch my channel, the vast majority of the barrel aged beer, especially bourbon barrel aged, are big stouts, right? So it's so interesting to have this and be like, no, that base beer is not a stout. Certainly not like a big imperial stout. It is something like a brown ale. So some of that base brown ale, like I don't want to, I'm not trying to, slag Dogfish Head, but like just if you haven't had this beer, haven't had Palo Santo, just think of like a good brown ale you've had, right? And I don't drink a lot of them, but like that almost nuttiness, like all those kind of tastes you get in a brown ale, do come through even with all the awesome barrel aging, um, and other notes that come with it. Huge winner for me. Love this beer. So glad I tried it. Liked it enough. Cause I was so hyped in my head. I'm like, I gotta try it. Put it on the flight, and then I had it. I'm like, yep, it's worth grabbing the crowler oven, doing a review. Well done, Dogfish Head. I look forward to them aging stuff in the future. I don't know what bourbon barrels these were in, but it's cool because they're doing the distilling, and I have some of their gins. But anyway, it'd be cool if they start, and maybe this is, I don't know, if they start aging some of their beers in their own distillery barrels. It'd be really cool. Speaking of really cool, you're really cool for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Check me out on Instagram and Untapped. No hype beer reviews at both those places. So always please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, imbibe. Cheers, everyone.